stared out the window of her quarters and watched the stars. They looked different from here, cold and distant. The space station orbited a small moon far from Earth. She had been traveling for 3 months to reach this place. The Galactic Assembly Station was supposed to be neutral ground, a place where different species could meet and talk. Right now, wished she was back home. She pulled on her uniform jacket and checked herself in the mirror. Her dark hair was pulled back tight. Her face looked tired. She had not slept well. Today was the day she would meet the Inn for the first time. Today was the day that could change everything for humanity. The door chimed. Park stepped inside, carrying a data pad. He was younger than, with nervous energy that made him tap his fingers against everything he held. He was the assigned to her team. His job was to understand alien life forms. Her job was to make them like humans. Morning said, "Did you read the updated brief?" Nodded. She had read it 3 times. The Inn were an old species, much older than humans. They controlled important trade routes in this part of the galaxy. If humanity wanted to expand beyond their small corner of space, they needed the Inn to say yes. Other species had tried to negotiate with them before. All of them had failed. Their skeletal structure is crystalline, said, pulling up images on his pad. See these? These are their ribs. They're made of a silicon-based compound. Very strong, but they can fracture under certain resonant frequencies. Looked at the image. The Inn looked like tall, angular beings covered in smooth plates that caught and bent light. Where humans had soft curves, the Inn had sharp edges. Where humans had warm skin, the Inn had cool crystal. They don't have humor, continued. No jokes in their culture, no sarcasm. They don't even have words for it in their language. Frowned, everyone has humor. Not them. Their communication is completely literal. If you say you're dying of hunger, they'll think you're actually dying. That's going to be a problem, said quietly. Gave her a sharp look. You need to be careful, no jokes, no sarcasm, say exactly what you mean, nothing more. Had always used humor to break tension. When meetings got awkward, she would make people laugh. When negotiations got stuck, a well-timed joke could shift the mood. Now she had to put that away. She had to be serious all the time for weeks or maybe months. Commander met them in the briefing room. She was a military officer, responsible for security on the human side of the station. Her uniform was perfect, her posture straight. She did not smile much, but when she did, it was genuine. The Inn delegation arrives in 2 hours, said. Ambassador leads their team. He has negotiated treaties for over 60 years. He is very experienced. 60 years, repeated. They live much longer than we do, explained. Continued. These negotiations are critical. 3 other species tried to partner with the Inn in the last decade. All 3 were rejected. The Inn found them too unpredictable, too emotional. We cannot afford to make the same mistakes. Felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. She was 32 years old. She had done difficult negotiations before, but nothing like this. If she failed, humanity would stay isolated. If she succeeded, the stars would open up. 2 hours later, stood in the docking bay. Her hands were clasped behind her back to hide their shaking. The Inn ship was smooth and dark, like polished stone. It made no sound as it settled into the bay. The airlock opened. Ambassador stepped through. He was tall, nearly 7 feet. His body was covered in crystalline plates that shifted colors as he moved. Blues and purples flickered across his surface. His face was angular, with deep-set eyes that glowed with a soft amber light. His ribs were visible beneath the translucent plates on his chest, curved structures that looked like musical instruments. Behind him came 4 other Inn, each wearing different colored markings on their plates. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced the same steps for years. Ambassador said, bowing slightly, "Welcome to the Galactic Assembly Station. I am representing Earth." His eyes focused on her. When he spoke, his voice had a musical quality like wind chimes. I acknowledge your greeting. We will begin negotiations. No pleasantries, no small talk, just straight to business. They walked to the conference room in silence, wanted to say something to ease the tension, but warning echoed in her mind. No jokes, no sarcasm. She bit her tongue. The conference room was designed to accommodate both species. Human chairs on one side, crystalline platforms for the inn on the other. Sat down, positioned himself across from her, his plates settling with a soft ringing sound. We will discuss trade access, stated. You wish to use the routes. You must prove your species is stable enough for this responsibility. Nodded, humanity is ready. We have protocols in place. Your species experiences significant emotional variation. This concerns us. Emotions are part of human nature, said carefully, but we can control them in professional settings. Previous species made similar claims. They proved unable to maintain consistent behavior. The meeting went on for 3 hours. Every time tried to build rapport, responded with cold facts. Every time she attempted to find common ground, he redirected to protocols and procedures. It was like talking to a very polite wall. When the session finally ended, felt exhausted, and his team left without any social closing, no goodbyes, just a statement that they would reconvene tomorrow. Back in her quarters, collapsed into her chair, brought her tea. That was brutal, she said. You did well, you stayed professional. I feel like I'm suffocating. I can't be myself around them. Sat down across from her. I know it's hard, but it's only for a few weeks. Sipped her tea. She thought about his glowing eyes, his complete lack of warmth. She wondered what it would be like to live without laughter, without jokes, without the small joys that made life bearable. She wondered if the inn were happy, or if they even had a concept of happiness. Outside her window, the stars still looked cold and distant. She had come so far, but the real journey was just beginning. The next morning started with a crisis. Was drinking coffee in the station cafeteria when alarms blared through the speakers. She jumped up, spilling hot liquid on her hand. Ran in, his face pale. What happened? Asked. Medical emergency. The inn thinks someone is dying. They rushed to the medical bay. Inside, they found 6 medical specialists surrounding a confused human supply officer named. The young man sat on an examination table while doctors scanned him with strange devices that hummed and glowed. I'm fine, kept saying. I'm completely fine. A doctor named Al turned too. His plates were marked with silver symbols. This human stated he was dying of boredom. We detected no pathogens. We cannot determine the cause of his condition. Closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It's a figure of speech. He wasn't actually dying. He was just expressing that he felt bored. Al's amber eyes flickered. He stated he was dying. We responded appropriately. In human language, we sometimes exaggerate for emphasis. We don't always mean things literally. The inn doctors looked at each other. Their plates rippled with color changes that might have meant confusion or concern. Al finally said, "This is inefficient communication. How do we know when humans speak truth?" It was a good question, did not have a good answer. After she extracted from the medical bay, Commander called an emergency meeting. All human personnel gathered in the briefing room. Stood at the front, her expression stern. New protocol, she announced. All communication with the inn must be literal. No jokes, no exaggeration, no sarcasm, no metaphors. If you cannot say something in plain, factual terms, do not say it at all. A supply officer raised his hand. What if we're just talking among ourselves? Keep it private. The inn have sensitive hearing. They can pick up conversations from quite far away. Felt the rules tightening around her like chains. Even casual conversation was now restricted. The whole station felt like it was holding its breath. Over the next week met with every day. They discussed trade regulations, safety protocols, and resource allocations. Every meeting was the same, would present detailed data, would respond with careful, literal statements. They made slow progress, but there was no warmth between them. Spent his time researching in biology. He set up a small lab and filled it with screens showing brain scans and neural patterns. One evening found him there, staring at a holographic display of an in-brain. "Found something?" she asked. "Maybe, look at this." He pointed to a section of the brain highlighted in blue. "This structure is dormant in the in, but in humans this area lights up when we laugh or find something funny. So they have the hardware for humor, they just don't use it. That's what it looks like, but I can't figure out why it would be dormant. Evolution doesn't usually keep structures that have no function." Studied the image. "Maybe they used to have humor and lost it somehow." "Maybe. I'm searching through old and text to see if there's any evidence." That night could not sleep. She kept thinking about the in-brain, about that dormant structure. She thought about living an entire life without laughing. It seemed lonely. The following day brought another incident. A human engineer told an assistant that she was starving while waiting for lunch. Within minutes, emergency food supplies were being rushed to her location. The inn had interpreted it as a genuine food shortage crisis. Called a meeting with. His plates had shifted to darker colors, which had explained meant irritation or concern. "Your species demonstrates unstable behavior," said. "Your words do not match your actual states. This makes you unpredictable." "We're just using our language the way we normally do," replied, trying to keep her voice calm. "Normal for you is confusing for others. 3 times now, we have responded to false emergencies. This wastes resources and time. I understand your frustration." "I do not believe you do. Frustration is an emotion. I experience concern about resource allocation and protocol efficiency." Felt her own frustration building, but she pushed it down. "We're trying to adapt. Please give us more time." Was silent for a long moment. "I will report to the High Council that humans may be too volatile for partnership. Our recommendation will likely be negative." After he left, sat alone in the conference room. She felt like she was failing, not just herself, but all of humanity. She thought about the millions of people back on Earth who were counting on her. She thought about the children who would grow up in a humanity trapped in their small corner of space because she could not make one alien species understand them. Commander found her there an hour later. "I heard about the meeting." "We're losing them," said. "No matter what I do, I can't connect with. It's like we're from completely different universes." "Maybe we are. Maybe some species just aren't meant to work together." "I don't believe that. There has to be something, some way to bridge the gap." Sat down beside her. "You're doing everything right. Sometimes that's not enough." That evening walked through the observation deck. She watched the delegation in a meeting room below. They sat in perfect stillness, their plates occasionally flickering with color. They looked like living statues. She saw among them. Even from a distance, she could see the rigid way he held himself. She wondered what he thought about all day. She wondered if he ever felt tired of being so serious all the time. Joined her at the window, still researching. "Always I found something interesting. Very old in texts, millions of years old. They have some phrases that don't translate well. They might have been jokes or playful language. So they did have humor once." "Maybe, and if they did, maybe they deliberately evolved away from it." "Why would anyone do that?" Shrugged. "Maybe they thought it was inefficient. Maybe it caused problems in their society. We may never know." Below them stood and walked to the window of his meeting room. For a moment it seemed like he was looking up at them, wondered if he could see her. She wondered what he saw when he looked at humans. Did he see them as chaotic children, as a potential threat, as something sad and limited? She pressed her hand against the window. The glass was cold. Everything in this place felt cold. She missed warmth. She missed laughter. She missed being able to say what she really thought without filtering every word. But she would keep trying. She had to, for Earth, for humanity, for the chance to reach the stars. Even if it meant losing part of herself in the process. 2 weeks had passed since the first meeting. The negotiations were falling apart. Every day became more convinced that humans were too unpredictable. Every day felt more trapped by the need to control every word she spoke. Tonight was supposed to be the final review session. After this, would make his recommendation to the in-high council. Knew what that recommendation would be. She had seen it in the way his plates had grown darker, in the way his responses had become shorter and more distant. The conference room was empty except for the two of them. It was late in the station's night cycle. Most of the crew was asleep, sat across from, reviewing endless pages of treaty language on her data pad. Her eyes hurt. Her head ached. She had been awake for nearly 20 hours. Section 47 requires revision, said. His voice had that musical quality, but there was no music in his words. The resource allocation formula contains an inefficiency. Looked at Section 47. She had read it a dozen times already. What inefficiency? If we calculate distribution based on population, we must also factor in consumption rates. This creates a circular reference that makes implementation difficult. So we use a different formula. Every formula has similar issues. We need a base standard that both species agree upon. They had been discussing this same point for 3 hours. They kept circling back to the same problem without finding a solution. It felt like trying to push water uphill. Perhaps we establish a joint committee to review allocations quarterly, suggested. That adds another layer of bureaucracy. It will slow everything down. Efficiency in administration prevents conflict in implementation. But over-administration creates its own conflicts. They were going in circles again, felt her exhaustion making her thoughts fuzzy. She rubbed her eyes and tried to focus on the screen. Continued talking, his voice steady and unchanging. We must consider the tertiary effects of primary distribution. If species A receives allocation and species B requires different allocation, then species C must be calculated using the differential between A and B, which then affects the original allocation to A, which then requires recalculation of B. His mind started to wander. She watched his plates shifting through subtle shades of blue and purple as he spoke. She thought about how strange it was that she was sitting here, millions of miles from Earth, listening to a crystalline being talk about bureaucratic formulas. She thought about how ridiculous the whole situation was. Two species trying to work together when they could barely understand each other, like two rocks trying to decide which one should roll downhill first. The thought made her want to laugh, but she held it in. Kept talking. And therefore, we must implement a 4-tier system with cross-reference validation at each tier, which requires. Exhaustion was making her filter weak. The absurdity of it all pressed against her mind. They were negotiating formulas for trading rocks and metals while completely unable to connect as living beings. They were two rocks negotiating with each other. Which brings us back to the original problem of baseline establishment. Something snapped, not in anger, just in pure tiredness. The carefully built walls she had maintained for 2 weeks crumbled. The words came out before she could stop them. We're like two rocks trying to negotiate which one should roll downhill first, she said. Her voice was flat, deadpan, exhausted. It was not even meant to be funny. It was just the truth as she saw it. Stop talking. His amber eyes focused on her with sudden intensity. Explain this statement. We keep going in circles, said, too tired to care anymore. We discuss allocation formulas and distribution tiers, but we can't even understand how each other thinks. It's like asking rocks to make decisions. Rocks don't decide. They just roll downhill because that's what rocks do. Was very still, His plates had stopped shifting colors. You compare us to rocks. I compare the situation to rocks. We're both stuck in our own ways of thinking, unable to move beyond our own patterns. Something strange happened then. Plates began to vibrate. It was subtle at first, just a faint trembling. Then it grew stronger. His whole body started to resonate with a frequency that made the air hum. Ambassador stood up alarmed. "Are you okay?" The vibrations increased. His crystalline ribs began to ring like tuning forks. The sound was beautiful and terrible at the same time. His amber eyes were wide, his body locked in place. Then came the cracking sound, sharp, clear, like ice breaking. One of his ribs fractured, then another. The vibrations were creating harmonic resonance in his crystalline structure, and his ribs could not handle it. Made a sound. It was rhythmic, pulsing, unlike anything had heard from a inn before. It took her a moment to realize what it was. He was laughing. The vibrations were laughter. "Oh no, oh no, no, no," ran around the table as more of his ribs cracked. "Stop, whatever you're doing, stop." But could not stop. The laughter kept coming, his body shaking with it. More ribs fractured with sharp cracking sounds. He collapsed to his knees, his plates flashing rapid colors that had never seen before. She slammed her hand on the emergency button. "Medical emergency in conference room 3, in Ambassador down." Alarms blared through the station. Within seconds, burst through the door, followed by Commander. They stopped, staring at the scene. On the floor, his ribs cracked and fractured, his body still vibrating with that strange, rhythmic sound. "What happened?" demanded. "I don't know. He just started shaking and his ribs started breaking." Al arrived within medical equipment. He scanned with devices that hummed and glowed. His plates were shifting through alarmed colors. "His neural activity is unprecedented," Al said. "His brain is firing in patterns I have never observed. The vibrations are involuntary responses to the neural activity." "Can you stop it?" asked. "I am trying." Al applied something to his chest. The vibrations began to slow. The cracking sound stopped. His body gradually stilled. But his eyes remained focused on. Even through whatever he was experiencing, even through the pain of his fractured ribs, his eyes held an expression she had never seen in a inn before. Something that looked almost like wonder. "Rocks," whispered, his voice rough, "rolling downhill." And the vibrations started again. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft humming of and healing equipment. Lay on a special platform designed for his crystalline body. Bands of glowing material wrapped around his fractured ribs, slowly repairing the damage. The process would take days. Sat in a chair outside the medical bay, her head in her hands. She had not slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the sound of ribs cracking. She had hurt him. She might have ruined everything. Sat beside her, his data pad showing scans of his brain. "This is incredible," he said quietly. "Look at this neural activity." The dormant structures in his brain activated all at once. It was like watching parts of his mind wake up for the first time. "I don't care about the science right now," said. "I hurt him." "You triggered something in him, something that was always there, just sleeping." Commander approached them, her face serious. "The High Council wants answers. They're sending a delegation. They arrive in 6 hours." "What do I tell them?" "That I made a joke and it almost killed their ambassador." "You tell them the truth. That's all you can do." Inside the medical bay, Al was checking vital signs. The doctor's plates showed colors that indicated concern and confusion. He had been scanning his brain repeatedly, unable to understand what had happened. His eyes opened. They focused on the ceiling, then slowly moved to where sat outside. Even through the transparent wall, she could see something had changed in him. His gaze was different, more aware somehow, more alive. "He is awake," Al announced, "but he keeps requesting to speak with a human." "Looked at, do you want to see him?" Stood up, Her legs felt weak, but she walked into the medical bay, watched her approach. His ribs were still fractured, but the glowing bands were slowly knitting them back together. "Ambassador," said softly, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you." His voice was quieter than usual, strained by his injuries. "You did not hurt me. You awakened something. Explain the rocks again." "What?" "The concept. Two rocks negotiating which should roll downhill first. Explain why this created the response in my neural system." Sat down slowly. It was a joke, a comparison meant to show how absurd our situation was. We were being so serious about protocols and formulas that we forgot we were just trying to work together. "Joke," repeated the word carefully. "This is the human concept of humor." "Yes." "It caused me to experience something I have never felt before. Pain, yes, but also," he paused, searching for words, "something that made the pain acceptable, something that made me want to experience it again." Al interrupted. "That is irrational. No being should want to repeat painful experiences." "Yet I do," said. "The neural pathways that activated, they are still active. I can feel them. Parts of my mind that were dark are now bright." Stepped forward, his data pad in hand. "Ambassador, may I share something with you? I've been researching ancient in texts, very old texts from millions of years ago." His eyes shifted to him. "Proceed." Pulled up images on his pad, showing it to everyone. "These texts contain phrases that don't translate properly into modern in. They seem almost playful, like they might have been jokes or humorous expressions." "Impossible," Al said. "Do not engage in humor, we never have." "But what if you did once?" asked. "What if your species had humor millions of years ago and deliberately evolved away from it?" The room fell silent, stared at the ancient texts on the screen. His plates shifted through colors that could not interpret. "Why would we do that?" asked quietly. "I can only guess. Maybe your species decided humor was inefficient. Maybe it caused conflicts or problems. Maybe you chose logic and seriousness over laughter and joy. And the neural structures remained," said, "dormant, waiting. Until activated them with a simple joke, finished." 6 hours later, the In-High Council delegation arrived. 3 tall in with elaborate markings on their plates. They looked ancient and stern. They met with first, then demanded to speak with. The meeting took place in the main conference room. The 3 council members sat across from, with, and beside her. Was there too, despite his injuries. He had insisted on attending. The lead council member spoke. Her name was, and her plates were marked with gold. "Human, you caused injury to Ambassador through your words. Explain how this happened." Took a deep breath. "I made a joke, a comparison about our negotiation process. I was exhausted and frustrated, and my control slipped. I said something that was meant to be humorous. Ambassador's brain responded to the joke by activating neural pathways that had been dormant. This caused physical vibrations that fractured his ribs." "You attacked him with information." "No, I shared a thought. I didn't know it would cause this reaction." Turn 2, you experienced this humor. Describe it." Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a tone that had never heard from in before, almost gentle. It was like seeing color for the first time after living in darkness. It was painful, yes. My ribs fractured, but the experience itself, I cannot find words in our language to describe it. The closest I can come is to say that I felt more alive in that moment than I have felt in my entire existence. The council members' plates rippled with colors. They looked at each other, communicating in ways could not understand. "This is dangerous," said. "If human humor can cause physical harm to in." "It can also awaken us," interrupted. "Show them the ancient texts park." Displayed the research on the main screen. The council members studied the ancient words, the strange phrases that did not fit modern in language. "We had humor once," said. "We chose to evolve past it, but it is still part of us, sleeping in our minds. Did not attack me. She gave me a gift. She showed me a part of myself I did not know existed. At the cost of your physical structure, pointed out. A cost I would pay again. The silence that followed was heavy. Held her breath, waiting for judgment. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance, decided by whether these ancient beings could understand the value of something they had lost millions of years ago. Finally spoke. This requires further consideration. We will deliberate and provide our decision tomorrow. They left the room, their plates flickering with troubled colors. Looked at. His ribs were still fractured. He had defended her at personal cost. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "You could have condemned me." His amber eyes met hers. "Because for the first time in 60 years, I understand what it means to feel joy." The next morning felt different. Could not explain why, but the air in the station seemed lighter somehow. She stood in the observation deck, watching in ships arrive and depart. Each one was smooth and dark, like pieces of night sky made solid. Found her there. The High Council is ready to announce their decision. Already. Apparently they talked all night, was with them. They walked to the main assembly hall together. It was the largest room on the station, designed to hold gatherings of multiple species. Today it felt too big, too empty. Just the human delegation on one side, the inn on the other, and a huge space between them. Stood at the center. Her gold markings caught the light. Stood beside her, his ribs still wrapped in healing bands. The other council members flanked them, their plates showing neutral colors. "We have made our decision," announced. Her voice carried through the hall. The incident with Ambassador was unprecedented. It forced us to examine aspects of our species we had forgotten existed. Held her breath. We reviewed the ancient texts. We analyzed Ambassador's neural patterns. We consulted our oldest historical records. The evidence is clear. The inn once possessed what humans call humor. We deliberately evolved away from this trait approximately 4 million years ago. Our ancestors believed emotion and humor caused inefficiency and conflict. Paused, the silence stretched. "They were wrong," said, stepping forward. "I have experienced what we lost. I cannot describe it adequately in our language because we removed the words for it. But I can say this: we became efficient, yes. We became logical and precise, but we also became incomplete." Another council member spoke, his plates marked with silver. "The human did not attack our ambassador. She revealed a truth we had hidden from ourselves. This is valuable, even if it came with physical cost." Continued. "Therefore, the High Council makes this decision. We will approve the trade partnership with humanity, but we add a unique requirement." His heart jumped. A requirement that could be anything. "We request that humans teach willing and individuals about humor. We wish to relearn what our ancestors abandoned. We wish to awaken the dormant parts of ourselves." The room was silent. Then Commander started laughing. Just a small laugh at first, then bigger. Other humans joined in. They were laughing with relief, with joy, with the absurdity of it all. The inn watched, their plates flickering with colors that might have been curiosity. His body began to vibrate again. Al immediately moved to his side but held up a hand to stop him. "I am laughing," he said, his voice strained. "It still hurts, but it is a good hurt." 2 days later, stood in a specially prepared room. 10 involunteers sat before her, each wearing protective rib braces that Al had designed. The braces would limit the vibrations, prevent fractures, and allow their bodies to slowly adapt to the experience of laughter. "This is the first humor training session," said, feeling surreal. "We'll start with the most basic form of humor, puns. These are jokes that play with words that sound similar but have different meanings." She could see the confusion in their amber eyes, but also something else: curiosity, eagerness. "For example," continued, "why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. The word outstanding means both excellent and literally standing out in a field. The N sat motionless. Then one of them, a younger and named N, began to vibrate slightly. His plates shifted through rapid colors. The protective brace around his ribs glowed as it absorbed the vibrations. "I understand," N said, his voice shaking. "The double meaning creates an unexpected connection. It is. It is." Funny supplied. "Funny," he repeated, and vibrated more. Over the next weeks, the sessions continued. The N learned slowly. Some of them adapted faster than others. N became particularly skilled, even attempting to create his own jokes. They were clumsy and often did not quite work, but the effort was remarkable. One evening, joined in the observation deck. His ribs had fully healed. He no longer needed the protective brace, though Al had warned him to be careful. "How does it feel?" asked, "being able to laugh now?" "Strange, wonderful, painful, all at once." He watched the stars. "I have been thinking about our first meeting, how cold I was, how rigid. I thought that was strength. Now I see it was just fear of feeling. Your species chose logic over emotion for a reason. Maybe there were good reasons. Perhaps, but we took it too far. We removed a fundamental part of what it means to be alive." He turned to look at her. "Your species kept emotion and logic in balance. You can be serious when needed, joyful when appropriate. You never had to choose between them." "We still struggle with it," admitted. "We're not perfect." "No species is perfect, but you showed us something we had lost. That has value beyond any trade route." A month after the treaty was signed, prepared to return to Earth, she stood in the docking bay, her belongings packed, and were already on the transport ship. She was saying her final goodbyes. Came to see her off. He walked differently now, with less rigidity. His plates shifted through warmer colors. "Will you come back?" he asked. "Probably. Earth wants me to continue the humor exchange program. Apparently I'm the human who makes aliens laugh." "You do more than that. You help us remember how to feel." He reached into his robes and pulled out a small crystal. It was carved into a smooth shape, with light trapped inside it. "This is a traditional and gift for honored teachers," he said, "but I added something non-traditional." He pressed a small button on the crystal. A hologram appeared, showing two rocks sitting on a hill. Slowly, clumsily, they began to roll. The animation was simple, almost childlike, but it was meant to be funny. Laughed, real laughter, warm and genuine. His body vibrated in response. His laugh was getting better, more controlled. The vibrations were gentler now, musical rather than destructive. "You made a joke," said, delighted. "I tried. Was it adequate?" "It was perfect." She boarded the transport ship. As it pulled away from the station, she watched through the window, stood in the docking bay, his plates glowing with warm colors. He raised one hand in a very human gesture of farewell. Smiled. She thought about how she had come to this station expecting to negotiate trade routes. Instead, she had given an entire species back something they had lost. She had cracked a joke, and an alien had laughed until his ribs snapped. And somehow, that moment had changed everything. The transport ship jumped to hyperspace. Earth waited ahead, but knew she would return to the stars. There were other species out there, other beings who might benefit from learning what it meant to laugh. Behind her, the station grew smaller in the viewport. Inside it, 10 students practiced telling jokes. Their protective braces glowed. Their bodies vibrated with laughter. And slowly, carefully, an ancient species remembered what it meant to feel joy. Humanity had reached the stars not through weapons or technology, but through something simpler and more powerful. They had reached the stars through laughter.